Autonomic Control. Let's say you're operating your smart television looking for where to turn on the Bluetooth when you accidentally stumble on a secret feature where you can access streaming apps without the internet. Now, Autonomic Control is kind of like that, except the television is your body, and the secret feature is being able to control your own heartbeat, body temperature, and all the other stuff an ordinary body handles on autopilot. It's the human version of hacking into a system no one told you was hackable. So while your neighbor is fully clad in thick sweaters and gloves during winter, you're running around in just your underwear because you've already turned yourself into a human radiator just by focusing on your breathing. Monks in the Himalayas are the ultimate pros at doing this. They've been known to meditate in sub-zero conditions wearing nothing but thin robes and still look more comfortable than someone standing next to a campfire. The secret lies in their ability to consciously regulate parts of the nervous system that the rest of us leave on autopilot. Most people have no clue they can tinker with their heart rate or control their blood flow, and honestly, why would we? Autonomic control is not an ability that a person is born with. It's a skill like learning to juggle, except instead of balls, you're juggling your body's internal thermostat or calming your heart like it's a toddler about to throw a tantrum. With years of meditation, mindfulness, and advanced breathing techniques, you too could master this Jedi-level trickery. Astronomical pattern recognition. Astronomical pattern recognition is like playing a galactic-level game of Where's Waldo, but instead of finding a guy in a striped shirt, these geniuses are spotting hidden patterns among stars, planets, and cosmic phenomena. It's the kind of skill that turns a night sky full of twinkling lights into a cosmic puzzle waiting to be solved. For someone with this ability, space isn't just a vast empty void. It's a giant connect-the-dots game. It's as if their brain comes preloaded with the ultimate stargazing cheat codes. This talent is rooted in their ability to spot trends, anomalies, and relationships in massive amounts of data. Because, let's be real, space is big. We're talking billions of stars, countless galaxies, and more numbers than anyone wants to deal with. Yet people with astronomical pattern recognition can sift through all that chaos and see the underlying order, as if the universe handed them a secret decoder ring. A classic example of figuring out the movements of celestial bodies. While you're using apps to check what constellation you're looking at, people with astronomical pattern recognition are calculating orbital trajectories in their heads. If you point to a random star, they could probably tell you its name, what type it is, and how it's moving relative to everything else. Meanwhile, you're just hoping you don't accidentally call Venus a star in conversation. Most people with this ability are scientists who figure out things like black holes, gravitational waves, and even whether alien life might exist. To them, spotting the tiniest irregularity in a star's brightness or a galaxy's motion is like finding the universe's Easter eggs. Polyglottery, language mastery. It's been 6 months since you and your roommate started learning Spanish using Duolingo, and all you can say in Spanish is cat. Meanwhile, your roommate has completed Spanish and French and is casually crushing Japanese. One moment they're chatting in French, then suddenly they're ordering sushi in Japanese, and before you can even ask them to slow down, they're cracking jokes in Spanish. It's like living with a Google Translate, except they don't need Wi-Fi and their grammar doesn't sound like it was pulled from a user manual. This is basically the life of a polyglot. They have the ability to learn and fluently speak multiple languages with uncanny ease. For a polyglot, languages are like snacks. They can't stop at just one. Each new language becomes an irresistible addition to their collection, and somehow they make it look easy. So while you're sweating over conjugating verbs like you're defusing a ticking bomb, polyglots are breezing through dialects like they're flipping through channels on a remote. Their brains are like natural code breakers, spotting patterns in grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation with ease. It's as if their mind has a cheat sheet for figuring out languages that the rest of us missed in class. This also helps them easily unlock VIP passes to different cultures and connect with other people in ways that go beyond words. It's like walking into a crowded room and realizing, you know, the secret handshake everyone's using. Absolute pitch. Absolute pitch is like having your very own built-in musical tuning fork permanently installed in your brain. Usually, most people would need a piano key or a tuning app to tell whether they're hitting the right note, but you can just listen and know. You've basically given each note a character with its own personality. Like you might think of middle C as an old friend who always shows up right on time, and D sharp as that cousin who never sticks to the plan. So whenever you hear the sound coming from anywhere, whether it's from a lawnmower or a blender, you can instantly tell what it is. That's right, this ability is not just limited to musical instruments. It could literally be coming from anything. If it produces sound, you can identify it and hum it back perfectly. It's like having a superpower for music nerds, one that instantly identifies the pitch of a tone the way other people can tell the difference between apples and oranges. Sometimes, though, this ability can turn around to smack you right in the face because you literally can't turn it off. Imagine sitting in a classroom where the old radiator is whistling slightly off-key all day long. For you, that's not just background noise, it's a one-note horror show that makes your teeth itch. You'd be hyper-aware of every tiny disharmony, which can make life feel like living inside a symphony where some instruments always forget to tune up. Idic Memory. Imagine your brain working like your phone's camera roll, except it never runs out of storage, doesn't need charging, and it's always got the perfect Wi-Fi signal straight into your head. That's basically what Eidetic Memory is like. A mental photo album with the clarity of a brand new lens and none of the smudgy fingerprints. Just a glance through a magazine for just a few seconds is like taking a mental screenshot. You'd remember every detail, from the typo in the ad to that random coffee stain in the corner, as if you've got a high-resolution copy saved in your brain. It's like your mind is part librarian, part scanner, and all show-off. However, eidetic memory doesn't mean you can memorize an entire library or stare at a calculus textbook and instantly become a math whiz. It's more about vivid, detailed recall of visual images for a short period. So, you'd crush at a game of Pictionary, but it might not help you remember your aunt's birthday. Well, unless she's part of the image. What makes eidetic memory fascinating is how it works. People with this ability don't just see a mental snapshot, it's more like a movie stuck on pause. They can replay the scene in their head and describe it while still looking at it. Think of it as the brain's version of keeping the Netflix screen frozen while you go grab snacks. Eidetic memory usually pops up in childhood and fades as they get older. Maybe the brain just gets tired of working overtime and decides it deserves a break. Exceptional multitasking. If you've ever seen a clown juggling apples while riding a unicycle, you already have a pretty good understanding of exceptional multitasking. It's an ability where a person can handle multiple complex tasks with the precision of a symphony conductor. These multitasking legends can respond to emails while coordinating spreadsheets, scheduling meetings, brainstorming ideas for a presentation in 10 hours, and remembering to feed their cat, all without missing a beat. It's like their brain has several tabs open and none of them ever freeze. Their brain seems to function on a different level, managing priorities as effortlessly as shuffling a deck of cards. It's not chaos for them, it's a carefully choreographed dance where each task knows its place. The secret to exceptional multitasking isn't some magic brain implant or superhero origin story, it's a mix of natural talent and practice. A few of them might be born with a bit of a head start. Their brain naturally processes and organizes information faster, making it easier to juggle multiple tasks. It's like their mental filing system is run by a hyper-efficient librarian who never takes a day off. But for most exceptional multitaskers, this ability develops over time through practice and necessity. Think about it. If you've ever worked in a high-pressure job or juggled a million responsibilities, you've probably gotten better at keeping multiple plates spinning. It's a skill honed by experience, trial, and error, and the occasional meltdown when everything crashes at once. Also, the brain itself can adapt to multitasking over time. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the better it gets at certain things. Speed learning. Speed learning is like cramming for an exam cranked up to the max. Except instead of stress-eating snacks and forgetting half of it by morning, speed learners are effortlessly absorbing information like a sponge on turbo mode. It's all the intensity of last-minute studying, but with the brain power of a genius and none of the panic. It's as if their mind comes with built-in high-speed Wi-Fi, downloading new knowledge at a rate that makes you feel like you're still on dial-up. You see, speed learners often have a few mental superpowers up their sleeves that help them absorb materials very fast. First, they've mastered the art of focus. So while you're distracted by texts, snack breaks, or wondering if your cat needs a hug, they're locked in, guzzling up knowledge faster than a sports car burns fuel. They also have the ability to spot patterns and connections in information that the rest of us might miss, which makes understanding new concepts faster and easier for them. It's like they've unlocked cheat codes for learning while the rest of us are stuck grinding through the tutorial. Also, speed learners have learned how to filter out the fluff. Instead of getting bogged down by irrelevant details, they zero in on what actually matters. It's like reading a novel but skipping the boring parts about the weather and going straight to the juicy plot twists. These guys achieve this ability by refining their skills using techniques like visualization, memory tricks, and even meditation to optimize how their brains work. Supercalculators, mental arithmetic. Supercalculators, or people with extraordinary mental arithmetic skills, are like human calculators on steroids. Before you could look for the calculator app on your phone to tap 7,236 multiplied by 48, these math wizards would just spit out, "The answer is 347,328, like they're announcing the weather. It's as if their brains come pre-installed with a magical math shortcut where numbers behave like polite little soldiers lining up in perfect order. They're able to do this with pattern recognition and lightning-fast mental strategies that allow them to break the problem into smaller, manageable chunks, and then zip through them with the precision of a sewing machine. Supercalculators visualize numbers like living, breathing entities that dance around and form connections faster than you can brew coffee. It's like their brains have turned math into a secret language, and they're fluent. So it's just instinctual for them to calculate the square root of the Earth without thinking, kind of like how a bird flies, they just do it. The ability of supercalculators is usually a mix of natural talent, intense practice, and a brain that sees the world a little differently. Some of them are born with exceptional pattern recognition skills or heightened working memory, which is like having supercharged RAM in their mental computer. These abilities give them a natural head start making numbers click into place. For others, it's all about intense practice and training. Think of it as the mental equivalent of going to the gym, except instead of lifting weights, they're mentally lifting digits. Over time, it just becomes a well-practiced routine for them. It's like solving math problems becomes their version of doing push-ups. Mnemonic Mastery. Chances are you've seen one of those magic tricks where a magician pulls a rabbit out of their hat. That's basically mnemonic mastery in a nutshell, except instead of a rabbit, it's a perfectly remembered fact, list, or sequence conjured up faster than you can say abracadabra. People with mnemonic mastery are able to remember stuff easily by using a fun rhyme, acronym, or downright hilarious mental images to store information. For example, if they need to remember the word apple as part of their grocery list, they'll picture a giant apple wearing sunglasses and breakdancing. The sillier the image, the better it sticks. Think about how you still remember the alphabet song from kindergarten. Now imagine applying that same strategy to memorizing the periodic table, and you're getting close to what mnemonic masters do. One of the wildest techniques they use is the memory palace. It's like turning your brain into an imaginary mansion where each room holds a specific piece of information. So if you need to remember your shopping list, you'd picture yourself walking through your living room and imagine bananas lounging on the couch, milk pouring itself into a vase, and eggs tap dancing on the rug. It probably sounds bonkers, but it works because the brain loves visual cues and ridiculous associations. Mnemonic masters are not born with the ability. They train their brains like athletes, constantly flexing their mental muscles until memorizing a 50-digit number feels as routine as brushing their teeth. Telepathic-like perception. If you've ever watched The X-Men or read the comics, you know Professor X, the bald guy in a wheelchair who can chat with people in their heads like he's got unlimited psychic data. Now, that's full-blown telepathy. Telepathic-like perception isn't quite on that level, but it's close enough to make you wonder if someone's secretly trained at the same school for gifted youngsters. These people have an uncanny ability to read the room, anticipate what others are thinking, and pick up on vibes so subtle that leaves others wondering how they knew. It's like having that one friend who finishes your sentences, knows when you're lying about being fine, and somehow shows up with tacos right when you're craving them. It's like their brain is running its own high-powered antenna, constantly tuned in to the emotional and social frequencies that normal people can barely catch. For them, reading someone's mood is as obvious as spotting a ketchup stain on a white shirt. It's just there. Just from a raised eyebrow, a slight hesitation in speech, or even the way someone fidgets, these perception pros can piece together a puzzle of micro-expressions and body language to figure out exactly what's going on in someone's head. It's like Sherlock Holmes, but instead of solving crimes, they're solving awkward silences. It's the kind of skill that makes them amazing friends, negotiators, or poker players. But if we're being honest, you'd never want to play cards with someone who can sense every bluff you try to pull. Multisensory Integration. Let's say you're in the kitchen chopping veggies and someone drops a plate behind you. Normally, what you'd hear is just the sound of the crash, right? But if you have multisensory integration, you'd hear more than just the sound of a crashing plate. Your brain would instantly calculate where the sound came from, remember that the plate makes that sound, and tell you to duck instinctively because something sharp may be flying your way. All these would happen faster, sharper, and with pinpoint accuracy, like your senses are holding a board meeting and coming to decisions before anyone else even knows there's a problem. Basically, multisensory integration is your brain's ability to combine information from multiple senses at once and process it so seamlessly that you barely notice it's happening. It's like being at a chaotic party with loud music, flickering lights, and a buffet that smells like heaven, and still being able to perfectly focus on your friend telling you a funny story about their dog. Most people would get overwhelmed and miss half the details, but you, with exceptional multisensory integration, can process it all simultaneously without skipping a beat. Athletes and performers often have this skill in spades. A soccer player, for example, isn't just tracking the ball with their eyes, they're feeling the wind against their face, hearing the footsteps of opponents, and using peripheral vision to spot teammates sprinting across the field. It's like they have an invisible dashboard of sensory data constantly feeding them information, helping them react in milliseconds, while the rest of us are still looking for the ball.